let's get started. My name is Shelby Morelli. I am the education coordinator at New Hampshire Audubon. Hopefully you all have met me before now, but if this is your first time tuning in, then welcome. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Today is our live story time, and the story I'm going to be reading is She's Wearing a Dead Bird on Her Head. And this is one of my favorite stories. It's a little piece of Audubon in a really fun children's book. So we will dive into that in a minute. But if you aren't familiar with New Hampshire Audubon at all, we are a independent nonprofit, so we aren't part of the National Audubon at all. We're our own nonprofit that thrives off of membership and donations and things, the support of you guys, basically. So our mission is to support New Hampshire's environment for wildlife and for people, and we do that through lots of different branches of the organization, including policy, sanctuary management, conservation, education, education being my piece of it, where I work with our raptors and our turtles and snakes and do education programs. So lots of different avenues that Audubon does, and today I'm here to do one of our live story times. So let's dive in. I'm excited. So I'll read the story or read the page, and then I'll show you the picture. That way I'm not trying to flip and show you at the same time. So here's the cover. She's wearing a dead bird on her head, and you can see these are going to be our two main characters here, and you can see what they're looking at. Looks like this lady is wearing a dead bird on her head. And one of the really cool things about this book is that it is a true story, and it is all about how the Massachusetts Audubon got started. So a little slice of how we kind of got to where we are today. Okay. Harriet Hemingway was a very proper Boston lady. She never talked with her mouth full, but one day she almost did. Standing by the bay window in her parlor, she had just bitten into a jam cookie when her eyes sprang open in dismay. She gasped, leaned forward, swallowed, then turned to her parlor maid. She's wearing a dead bird on her head. Feathers on ladies' hats were becoming more and more popular. At first, hats had been decorated with just feathers, and then designers began to add pairs of wings. But this woman had an entire bird perched atop her head. Harriet squinted her eyes as the lady of fashion proudly walked by. "Arctic tern, I believe," Harriet whispered. "Looks ready to fly away," said the parlor maid. "It won't," Harriet replied sadly. So this looks like, you can see the two of them there gawking at this lady who has an Arctic tern on her hat. And they definitely aren't happy about it. Harriet felt she had to do something. Huge populations of birds, from egrets to pheasants to owls to warblers, were being slaughtered for hat decorations. None were spared, not even pigeons. But what could she do? Women in 1896 had very little power. They could not vote, and many had husbands who did not allow them to make decisions for themselves. So women were not even allowed to read the newspaper. Harriet's husband, Augustus, did not treat her this way. But she and other women like her wanted to change things for all women, and she wanted to do something for the birds. Fashion was killing birds, as well as women's chances to have the right to vote and be listened to. For those who would listen to a woman, but who would listen to a woman with a dead bird on her head? And if the senseless slaughter for silly fashion was not stopped, in a few years the birds with the prettiest feathers would all be dead, gone forever, extinct. I must call Cousin Minna," Harriet said grimly. Alright, we'll start over here. We have some men with hats. This one has a woodpecker. This one in the middle here has a whole bird. That looks like the Arctic tern lady. Da-da-da. This one has a whole owl. Oh my goodness. That's so sad. So you can see all the different... This one looks like the bird is popping into a hole here. I'm going to pause for a second and swing myself around, come out of the sun, because it is very warm out here. Da-da-da-da. Travel along with me as I spin around. Much better. Okay, so back to it. Click, 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 click. The heels of Minna Hall's high but toned shoes beat a quick rhythm against the bricks of the sidewalk. Her blue eyes were bright as they searched the bare limbs of the trees that lined the avenues of the yellow finches that appeared like spots of flitting gold on this gray winter day. Their quick gold flight swelled her heart. Click, 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 click. She could not be late for tea at Harriet's. This was way too important. Click, 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 click. Miss Hall's feet froze in her tracks. Straight ahead there was indeed a pair of golden wings, but they had neither head nor a body attached. They were pinned instead to the crown of a lady's hat, and on the brim was a swirl of snowy egret feathers. All right, so we can see. Let's see if I can make this better. There we go. Here is Cousin Minna coming, storming down. This lady is wearing a hat with some egret feathers on it, and you can see she's walking down this nice little path. Let's see what she says, if she says anything. Revolting! The single word rumbled down Commonwealth Avenue as noisily as a cannonball, loose on a ship's deck. Me? The fashionable woman squeaked with dismay. You heartless creature! That a bird should be slaughtered just to make you feel pretty. Yuck! Minna made a scalding sound deep in the back of her throat. She definitely told her. So there she is running away. And you can see there's the lady. She does not look happy, but that's what she gets for wearing a dead bird on her head. When Minna stormed into the parlor, Harriet was preparing tea. Well, Harriet, Minna exclaimed as she pulled off her felt cap, from Arlington Street to Clarendon, 3 egrets, 1 marabou, 2 grebes, 1 goldfinch, and Minna paused. Her cousin waited nervously, the teacup chattering on the saucer she was holding. A hummingbird! Oh no, said Minna. Oh yes, Harriet. Perched in full flight on a bunch of silk roses with a veil. Disgusting. Revolting. Nauseating. Vile. The words flew through the air like red-hot cinders. Well, let's get down to business, Minna said. Do you have the book? All right, you can see her here. She doesn't look very happy. Pan over, we can see Harriet here preparing the tea. Let's see what happens. Yes, right here, Harriet Hemingway walked over to the shelf in the parlor and took down a large blue volume. The words Boston Social Register were written across the cover in golden letters. The book was a list of all the grandest families in Boston. They opened the book, and with pencils in hand, they began to scan the list of families, starting with A. Mr. Appleton, quite fashionable. Indeed, a peafowl with a few warblers' feathers at tea last week. Bancroft, marabou fan, and a hat to match at the opera. Finally, they got to the Z's. Miss Zacharias, egrets and warblers with a touch of flamingo. I do believe luncheon at the Somerset Hotel. My goodness. So, sounds like they're listing all these fancy people and what they were wearing on their hats at the time. So we can see, here they are, pulling the book down, starting to make their list. Dear, dear, Minna moaned and sipped the last of her tea. What shall we do? Well, Harriet scratched her head. We have garden clubs and history clubs. Why not form a bird club? Not to just watch birds, no, but to protect them and stop this senseless murdering for fashion. What a wonderful idea, said Minna. Let's do it. Let's start a club for birds. Right then, they began to write letters to all the Boston ladies of fashion who wore the plumage of birds, imploring them to put aside their fancy hats with swirls of owl feathers, breasts of grebes, wings of hummingbirds, and plumes of egrets, and instead join a society dedicated to protecting all birds. This was the first informal meeting of the Audubon Society, named after a man they admired, John Audubon, the famous painter of birds. All right, they can see here all they're up to, walking around. Looks like they are handing out letters. Harriet and Minna were very persuasive. They convinced women not only that killing birds was wrong, but that birds as hat decorations made women look silly. Soon, many of the fashionable ladies of Boston, to whom they had written letters, did join the society. For the club to accomplish its goal, however, Harriet and Minna knew it also needed men, smart, powerful men who could vote and go into public places like the state legislature and the halls of Congress in Washington, D.C. So they asked lawyers and doctors, sportsmen, and birds experts to join too. Here we have the fancy men. Over here we have the ladies. Maybe a lady that has decided that she probably shouldn't wear the hat anymore. At the second meeting of the Audubon Society, Harriet and Minna and the new members made up rules for their club. "I think," said one gentleman, "that there should be an exception made for ducks." "What kind of exception?" Harriet said. "We want to hunt them," replied another gentleman. "Rules are rules," fumed Minna. "Sportsmen aren't special," another woman said, and stamped her feet. The woman won. There would be no killing of ducks or game birds. Then all the members devised a plan to get the word out on birds to everyone, and the bird hat campaign of the Audubon Society began. This is pretty funny. You can see how sad this guy looks because he loves to hunt ducks. Over here we have a cat chasing a spider. The membership in Boston continued to grow, and the members were always lively. The orange groves in Florida this year are suffering because there are too many dead hummingbirds on hats and not enough in the groves pollinating the plants, said Miss Harriet, the secretary of the society. "Let's get the farmers on our side. Send out a letter," said Minna. Here we have a lady with hummingbirds on her hat looking for fruit, wondering maybe why there isn't any. "Do have some more apple pie," Harriet offered, "and be happy it's not songbird pie, a specialty in some places, I'm told." All the members stopped eating and looked at the apple pie on their plates. "Ghastly," whispered Mr. William Brewster, and for one awful minute they all imagined songbirds instead of apples in their pie. Warblers, nightingales, and robins, too. "I think," said Minna, slowly setting down her plate, "we better start getting some laws passed." Here they are, thinking about songbirds and their pie. Thankfully, it's just apple pie. In the club, everybody was equal. The women and the men of the society wrote up the ideas together and then sent the gentlemen to talk to legislators in the State House and to members of Congress in Washington, D.C., to press for passages of the laws to save the birds. They were successful. An act was passed in 1903 to protect herons and... Hi. I'm having technical difficulties here, so hopefully we'll let everyone pop back on and we'll continue reading. My phone got too hot in the sun, so I'm so sorry, but we will continue reading as soon as everyone hops back on. I apologize. We will pick right back up where we left off. My phone got too warm, it said, so I had to come inside. I'm so sorry about all the moving around. I'll let a couple people hop back on that I know we're watching, and that way we can, I know that we're rolling back up here, so give people a minute or two. Again, sorry. Okay. I'm going to pick up back where I left off. So we ended on this page, protecting our shore, marsh, and beach birds. Okay. Soon there were laws against hunting birds during their breeding season, and then a federal law was passed preventing the importation of feathers from Europe and the tropics for hats. The word about birds had spread all the way to England, where Queen Victoria had announced that she was never again wearing feathers for fashion. But Minna and Harriet were still far from happy. "What good is a law if it isn't enforced?" Minna moaned one day as she stood looking out the window at a woman passing by with a pheasant wing raking the air above her. "You can't arrest a lady for wearing a hat, but you can arrest the supplier of the feather," Harriet said. She tapped her head lightly as to give a little jostle to her brain. "There are rumors about secret feather warehouses." She spoke softly. "I think we should make a few inquiries." All right, here we go. Here they are. More people wearing feathers on their heads. So the two ladies with Harriet's husband Augustus took the train to New York City, where they were not so well known. They got as gussied up as two Boston ladies who loved birds and hated fashion could imagine. They sashayed down Fifth Avenue in fancy dresses and wore elaborate hats with streamers and ribbons, but no feathers. Into the fanciest hat store the two cousin and Augustus Hemingway pranced. You can see heading in to New York City and how many people are wearing feathers on their hats there. "I want to buy my wife and dear cousin each a hat, a feathered hat," Augustus announced. The salesperson began fluttering around in the prosperous-looking threesome. "What will it be, madame? Egrets or doves? A little cloche covered with owl feathers, or this broad-brimmed hat with the Arctic tern? It is not spectacular with the blue felt, just as it is plunging into the sea." The two ladies swallowed their disgust and muffled their anger. After all, there were more important things at stake. But by the end of the shopping expedition, they, alas, had to buy 2 hats. But they also had the name of the feather supplier with a warehouse in Baltimore, where millions of dead birds and tons of plumes were stored. With this information, they went directly to the authorities. So you can see them in the store. And there's the Arctic tern. Looks like it's plunging into the water. Soon after, on a rainy May day, the cousins sat sipping tea. Harriet had just bitten into a crisp wafer when a tidal wave Augustus burst in to the parlor. "Ladies!" He held the newspaper aloft his head. "We've won!" "We what?" said Minna. She and Harriet held their breaths. "We won, dear cousin and dear wife. 26,000 illegal gull skins destined for hats of fashion were seized last night from the Baltimore warehouse. They have shut it down, taken the skins, and arrested the owner." Augustus paused. This rain-slicked beam with pride. The law had been enforced. Here we go. You can see Augustus bursting in here. There's the cat. I think the cat is in every photo doing something funny. Minna looked at her cousin. "Harriet, we won!" But Harriet said nothing, for Harriet Hemingway never spoke with her mouth full, even when she won. You can see the two of them here, hugging with a mouthful, of course. And this bird looks like it's walking out of the picture frame there. All right, that is the end. Again, I'm so sorry for the interruption there. Hopefully all of you that were on the other live popped over here. If not, this will be on our page so you can finish the story. But yeah, I hope you liked my story. And if you want to keep supporting us, feel free to go to our website and make a donation. Definitely not required, but if you would like to, so we can keep doing this, that would be awesome. So I will be on tomorrow at 10 a.m. with our barred owls. So tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. and you will get to see those guys. So hope you guys have a wonderful day. Try to stay cool. It is going to be a very hot day. So I hope you have a wonderful day.